Hello everyone, I am CoolGuy, welcome back. Since late December, I started my reviews for the Sundial weapons, and each one of those in-depth reviews are down below in the description, so if you want to learn a little bit more about them, those are there. Some are 13 minutes long, some are shorter, some are 20 minutes long. They took however long they needed to fully review them. Now, I've used each of these weapons for at least 10 hours. I grinded out all the rolls myself, I don't take accounts, I tested the perks on them, and I gave my recommendations. Since the Empyrean Foundation is here, getting rolls from turning in Fractaline became a whole lot easier. Today's video is my ranking of the Sundial weapons from the Obelisk, a wrap-up. Maybe some of you are unsure, maybe some of you have little time to grind out the rolls, and some are getting Fractaline to put into the Foundation for bounties. The rankings today reflect the value I have of each one moving past this season, meaning the rolls and weapons that I believe will actually get pulled out of my vault and used beyond Season of Dawn. Because we've all done it. You grind for rolls, you shelve it, and it just sits there. These rankings are based on them staying with me and actually getting used. The Sundial activity itself is fun in spurts, but honestly I think the whole 6-man menagerie style activity has started to wear thin on players. Maybe they can bring something like this back 3 or 4 seasons down the line, but if they keep going with these, I think it will burn players out. Time invested to rewards though is probably the best it's ever been, so it does have that going for it. Now, there are 2 weapons that didn't get full in-depth reviews. I'm going to talk about them briefly. It's not because that they're bad, it's because they're very user specific. Those 2 Sundial weapons are from the Mars Obelisk, Martyr's Retribution and Line in the Sand. Both of these are special in their own right, and first up, the grenade launcher. It's a worthy pickup for a number of reasons. The only thing that matters though is if you're going to use it or not. It's unique, it has a very specific perk pool, and that perk pool has very select combinations you should be looking for. After the shot, once it hits the ground, it has the waveform frame. It explodes into what is seen as similar to a thermite grenade. It literally mows through enemies, and the best part, it does really good damage. With the perk pool, there are 2 popular options in each node. There's no better one than the other because it depends on how you want to use it. In the first node, we have auto-loading holster. That way you can throw out the grenade, let it hit the ground, get the kills, bring out your primary, it auto-reloads in the background, and you can do it all over again. And the other is going to be field prep. You get a faster reload while crouching and increased reserves. This is a very low-key perk. It's one of my favorite perks in the game. If you want to be aggressive with it, this is what you want. Remember, you don't have to stay crouched, and you're seeing the regular reload speed currently. All you have to do is just tap the crouch right after you shoot it, and then stand right back up. You don't have to stay crouched, and with mouse and keyboard, you can do it so fast it doesn't even look like you've crouched at all. And the second perk node to pair with these 2, you have Demolitionist. Since it does mow through enemies, that really does help your grenade cooldown, and once you throw your grenade, it's going to auto-reload the launcher. The second perk is going to be Lead from Gold. Picking up heavy ammo also grants ammo for this weapon. Very good perk, so say heavyweight's on with solar burn, this is perfect. With the first 2, auto-loading and field prep, it's 2 completely different playstyles, both really work well though. In PvP, the wave sends out and it does a stout 120 damage. You can put on a quick access sling, a quick draw primary. You could use it from the air, you can drop it down on your enemy right in front of them. It's very fun, very unique, but again, it's user specific. The one that I use is field prep with Demolitionist or Lead from Gold. Those are my 2 other perks. Note that auto-loading holster might have the edge for PvP because you can shoot it out, bring out your primary, and when you're ready for your next opponent, you can just bring it out and do that over again. The second Mars weapon is Line in the Sand, a linear fusion. The damage on this is average and almost lines up with the sniper rifle for damage. There's really only one roll that's truly special that you should be looking for. That's going to be Rapid Hit with Firing Line. And if you want to go further than that, it would be Rapid Hit with Firing Line, and the second perk would be Clown Cartridge. This way you can switch between solo and group DPS. Clown Cartridge for being solo. I would also use a boss spec, and with activities that have other players, that's when you choose Firing Line. The stars can align for this thing though. You would bring it out in a certain scenario, and it does very well in that scenario. So it would be a group activity, you have on a boss spec that gives you a little bit more damage. Firing Line grants 25% more damage from base when allies are around you, and then you would be looking for Heavyweight and the Arc Burn modifier, so 4 separate damage bonuses. Not to mention, let's say you got a teammate hitting them with like a divinity, or you're in a well. In those situations, it's a monster, so it's going to be up to you to grind for this. After those 2, there are 6 left that I did do in-depth reviews for, and after spending time with them, this is my list. I'll go over the roles I've chosen for them, and why some of them do have staying power, and your list is probably going to be different than mine. It depends on what you find value in. So at number 6, the Infinite Paths 8. It has a number of issues. The number 1 issue is the archetype that it's in. Lightweights need some help, damage-wise, range-wise, a whole bunch of things. The stats that it has push you to have a perfect barrel, a perfect magazine, and you have to put a counterbalance mod on it. It is the only pulse rifle in the game with Eye of the Storm, so that's a very special quality. For the Crucible, It's the most unforgiving pulse archetype in the game for the TTK that you get. You need to land 8 critical straight for a 0.87 TTK, so you're rewarded with a 0.87 if you're 100% accurate. Meanwhile, you're getting flinched. Meanwhile, you have fall off. Meanwhile, you have a pulse burst that you need to land all 3. It somewhat struggles, so if you were to pick one up, it would be in the hopes that these get a quality of life adjustment later on. The role for console would be moving target with Zen Moment. With mouse and keyboard, it would be moving target with Eye of the Storm. PvE wise, it has a very special perk combination, and that's Dragonfly Demolitionist. You're using Dragonfly's secondary explosive damage to get cleanup kills, and those kills count towards proccing demo. It's a very cool perk combination, but in the end though, if you were to go for it, it would be more so in hopes that it gets a buff later on. On to number 5, the STEELFEATHER Repeater. This was the last full in-depth that I did. It's a tale of two platforms, it really is. STEELFEATHER has the lowest stability in class, and it's by a wide margin. On console, even with correcting recoil direction perks and a counterbalance mod, it's still all over the place, and you end up finding it more than it's helping you. All the perk combinations that it has are going to be better on other weapons, especially with today's #1 ranked weapon. On PC, it's more controllable, but I've had a lot of comments, a lot of players telling me that it still doesn't feel good in your hands. The top overall role is Feeding Frenzy multi-kill clip. Feeding Frenzy and a damage perk in Destiny 2 is one of the smoothest feelings in the entire game. It does have a lot going for it. But with this weapon, this archetype, you do need that damage though. At base, it's fine for general play, but I found that it struggles the moment that you're in the slightest more difficult activity. I've seen various opinions on it. I am keeping a Feeding Frenzy multi-kill clip role since I have it, but with console controller, I would seriously consider firmly planted on it. PvP wise, it's average. Other 720s do it better. Outlaw kill clip, Valkaden, or a Reckless Oracle as an example. STEELFEATHER has some great perks, but it has some abysmal base stats that destroy the experience with it. Number 4, the Gallant Charge. This is a very special fusion rifle. Aside from Loaded Question, I believe it's the other best legendary fusion rifle in the game, and a big part of that is that it's solar. And this is the part of the list of where we start showing the ones that I'm for sure going to be using in upcoming seasons. PvE wise, it has a perk combination no other fusion has, and it just has rare perk combos all around. Demolitionist multi-kill clip, and there's also Demolitionist Swashbuckler. And this is the only fusion rifle in the game that has Grave Robber Swashbuckler. What's so nice about these perk combinations is that it's a high impact fusion. The shot is very heavy, and it can down multiple enemies at once. You could be using the multi-kill clip roll. You can down 3 adds with 1 burst. If you have Demolitionist with it, each one of those is getting grenade energy. You would reload, you're gonna have a ×3 multi-kill clip stack, 50% more damage than base, it's a monster. The same goes for having Swashbuckler. You melee for a ×5 instantly, and keep that ×5 going. It's a very good PvE fusion. It can put in a lot of work. For PvP, it's good depending on the perks that you get, and if you want this for the Crucible, you can use those PvE rolls, the damage dealing ones with Swashbuckler multi-kill clip. Specifically the Swashbuckler one more because you can melee and go from there, but for a very specific Crucible roll, I would go Demolitionist with either Tap the Trigger or Rangefinder. My last video I went over high impact fusions in depth, and my honest opinion, the Gallant Charge is probably kinda how high impacts should be at base to go off of. It has a locked in scope, meaning that it has barrels. It's never gonna be as consistent or as lethal as Erentil, but with perks like Demolitionist on a high impact for PvP, it's really nice. Number 3, Patron of Lost Causes. It's an elite 200 RPM that goes for both the Crucible and PvE. There are 3 roles that I have that I'm keeping, and I just really enjoy using the Scout. My top 2 roles are Rapid Hit Vorpal and Rapid Hit Explosive Payload. And if you have your pass up, you can roll for just one Scout, Rapid Hit, with both Vorpal and Explosive Payload. The theme is Rapid Hit. Rapid Hit makes this Scout rifle, just like when players got Randy's throwing knife. They started using it and they thought, man, this thing feels pretty good. It's not that bad. It's kind of fun. It's because of Rapid Hit. The Rapid Hit stability buff is major, and a stability buff on Scouts in general are a huge part of what makes the more popular ones popular. There's no coincidence that Jade Rabbit and Polaris both have Zen Moment, and they're go-tos for a lot of Crucible players when they use Scouts. For the Crucible, this is where Rapid Hit Explosive Payload comes in. It's a great shooting experience with Rapid Hit. Controller players are going to love it. With mouse and keyboard, you're going to have pretty much 0 reticle movement with Rapid Hit going. The explosive rounds do flinch your target. It's one of the only perks that can mess up a sniper. Now with how flinch works, they can still get you from time to time, but it does shake them. It does throw them. So that makes it one of the better long lane engagement Scouts. The overall feel is great. The RPM pretty much matches the recoil, very fun to use. For PvE, I enjoy it there as well, it has a place. And this is where the rapid hit Vorpal roll comes in. Vorpal weapon deals 14.9% more damage. We round that to 50% more damage to bosses, vehicles, and guardians in their super. You can add on a boss spec to stack on top of that. When you add on the boss spec, you do a total of 24% more damage than base. And how I think about it is that a Rampage times 2 stack is 21% more damage than base. So the 24% is just a small amount more than that. So when I'm shooting at a boss, I'm at a safe distance, I have rapid hit, the shooting experience is great. I think in my head, I'm pretty much always doing Rampage times 2 with the Scout at all times. And it's worth noting that Vorpal does work with majors as well, and when you work on majors, you can put on a major spec for that 24% more damage. Say there's a small damage phase like we have in the Sundial bosses, it's great there, or I can pick at majors from a distance. It's awesome. On to my number 2, the Traveler's Judgment Sidearm. I will be using this for sure, and there's one reason and one reason only for that, because it can roll with Disruption Break. Breaking an enemy's shield with this weapon makes them more vulnerable to kinetic damage for a brief time. This is a big deal to me because a lot of buffs, debuffs, damage dealing perks like Rampage or Kill Clip got changed. They got scaled down. As an example, a lot of debuffs gave you 50% more damage, like Hammer Strike, Shattering Strike. That 50% debuff got nerfed to 30%. Disruption Break still grants a 50% debuff when you break shield, so that's basically all you're going to be doing with this thing. You see a shield, you swap to it, you take the shield out, you switch to your primary weapon, and do massive damage with it. That could be with an Izanagi shot. That could be with a Vorpal weapon like Breachlight or Steelfeather. The artifact has different weapons each season, and one would think that sidearms are going to come up at some point. And if they do, this can also work with the anti-barrier champions in the game. You break their shield with an anti-barrier round weapon that also has Disruption Break, they're debuffed for 50% more after you break it. Sidearms got a PvE damage buff and target acquisition buff, and all it's doing is breaking shields. That's all you're doing, and it does it well. The roll is autoloading holster with Disruption Break or rapid hit with Disruption Break. The autoloading holster Disruption Break works well because you can bring out the sidearm, break the shield, stow it as you're hammering them with 50% more damage than base with your primary, and by the time another shield comes up, it auto reloads in the background. PvP wise, they're very lethal if you land all your shots, one of the fastest killing weapons in the game as a primary, and the roll for PvP would be rapid hit with tap the trigger. And lastly, my number 1 weapon is Breachlight. I do believe Breachlight is pound for pound the best weapon from the Sundial. With the buff sidearms got, the target acquisition buff, these 2 burst sidearms are shredding. The roll is Demolitionist Vorpal weapon. I went over Vorpal earlier with Patron. I do run mine with a major spec, doing that 24% more damage when I hit them. Going back to Steelfeather real quick, for the engagement distance, the Breachlight does everything better. The Vorpal roll, the multi-kill clip roll, everything. Sidearms got that buff damage, and the damage profile for these 2 bursts are extremely good. It does very well versus red bars, it does extremely well in higher tier content, and it does so well versus red bars and mows through them so well, I forgo the multi-kill clip roll and use the Vorpal one specifically for majors. However, Outlaw multi-kill clip is a very good roll as well. Shred through them, get 50% more damage with a fast reload. The thing's legit. Now, in the actual in-depth review, I talk about it a little bit more. I go into detail, but I'm still impressed with it. For PvP, it does great. The same Demolitionist Vorpal roll I use in PvE is the same one I use in the Crucible. The damage profile there is great. It's relaxed, it's consistent, it has an optimal TTK of 0.73 seconds, so that's 3 crit, 2 body shots, and the body TTK is 6 bullets. That's 0.83 seconds or 3 full bursts. This sidearm within range is always a 3 burst kill. It shoots 2 rounds per burst, so always a 6 bullet kill. It's relaxed, it has some range, and that's where Vorpal comes in. Vorpal weapon on Breachlight versus a super is lethal. I've shut down countless supers with it. It's now to a point that if a super is coming straight at me, or I'm backpedaling, I don't want any other weapon in my hands, because I can be mobile with it. I can jump up in the air, I can jump over them. You can do a lot of different things. The body damage with Vorpal on a super is 25 per shot, so 50 per burst. No matter what, it's a 4 burst to the body. Not too far from its regular 3 burst kill. Its critical damage is 34, 37, depending on what super you're going against, so at least 68 damage per burst if both land the critical. It chunks them down. In conclusion, your list is probably different than mine, but this is how I rank the usage and overall effectiveness. If you don't have some of these rolls, I would start at Breachlight and kind of move your way down that list. The other weapons, there's some avid pulse users, there are some avid scout rifle users, so of course, if that's your jam, that's what you go for. But talking about the top 3 or 4 specifically, the damage profile with Vorpal weapon on the Breachlight is outstanding. There aren't too many that's going to match what it's going to do later on. There are only 2 sidearms in the game, the Traveler's Judgment and Drain, and the Drain comes from the Menagerie. They can roll with Disruption Break. It's a very simple thing that you're doing. You're just using it to break shields and then you debuff them. I find a lot of value in that. The Patron rolls are awesome. The Gallant Charge Fusion is awesome because of what you can have on it, and it's a big deal that it's solar. Down below, let's talk about these Sundial weapons and the Sundial activity itself. You don't have to rank all 8, you can just do your top 3, but let's also talk about what you find value with some of these rolls. That way we can help each other out. Those were my main things that I went over today, but you might have some things that's niche and more players need to know about it. If you're new here, remember to hit the subscribe button, and if you are subscribed, thank you so much for your support. Let's talk about these Sundial weapons below. Thank you for watching, and until the next one, I am CoolGuy.